If you've ever wondered, what the hell is shadow work and how do I do it? Well, this episode is for you. By the end of the episode, you're going to know what shadow work is, how to do it, and also probably the most difficult part of this is when to do it. When do you know you need to do shadow work? Because it can sneak up on you if you don't do it proactively. And also, you could be looking for shadow work your whole life and not enjoy your life. So, we don't want either one of those two extremes. So, I'll show you a pretty foolproof way to engage with shadow work without letting it completely take over your life. Let's dive in.
2, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab. This is season 2 of the podcast, where we look at how connecting with our most authentic selves allows us to thrive in uncertain situations. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a chemistry professor and also a songwriter and musician. I have a unique way that I look at life, and I found that this perspective, using both my science brain and also my music brain, has helped me understand my world within and the world around me. This month, we're focusing on the calibrate phase of my Calibrate Experiment Optimize framework using my song Shadow. This is the second song on my I Am album. Now, this song is all about the hidden parts that we all have and uncovering them. One of my favorite lyrics of this song is, "Darkness leads you to the light." And I know that we all can find this to be true in our lives. We shine a light on the parts that we hide. We often get this overwhelming sense of relief that we didn't know existed. It doesn't mean this kind of work is easy, but it does mean that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Haha, see where I went with that. So I've shared a few stories already. The previous episodes have been about specific types of shadow work. And I thought I would zoom out even a little more and answer this question I saw on Reddit recently. What the heck is shadow work and how do I do it? The perspective I'd like to offer about shadow work really comes from my experience as a chemist. And when we use more of a scientific thought process through shadow work, we actually get to perceive what's happening inside of our own soul, our own world, without being directly tied to it. In a way, as a scientist, every time we run an experiment, we're just observing what's happening and collecting the data. There is a sense of separation between the scientist and the experiment. And when we do shadow work, you're going to notice that flavor throughout this episode where I'm really describing it more like us being like a third person perspective, where we're observing ourselves coming up with thoughts we didn't know were there because they were hidden from our own consciousness. I know that sounds weird, but really thinking about it as if you're the scientist of your life. And I want you to think about having a clipboard and your lab coat. You got your goggles on, and you are getting ready to do shadow work. That's kind of an image that might be helpful for you. It allows me to go deeper with myself without forcing a conclusion. And that'll be another key component. I also will share a story, and one key thing, watch or listen to the end of this podcast, because by the end of it, I'll also be sharing when to do this work. Let me tell you this story about a time in which I realized I had a shadow, and it's something you can probably relate to. When I was a full-time musician, I felt pressure to be promoting myself in a very specific way, and especially on social media. And I'm sure that you've seen it where there's musicians that do a really great job sharing lots of photos and always having something really exciting going on. And I remember vividly, there was this one musician that I looked up to in the way that they promoted themselves. I can say that now. But let me be really radically honest here. We are in the calibrate phase, and calibrating anything is all about radical honesty. I just said that I was really looked up to them. Actually, in the moment when I would see their posts, I would get so jealous. I was so jealous by the fact that they were so consistent with posting. They were so excited to invite people to their shows. They were so good at sharing what they were doing and the music they were making. And I never could really be that consistent with it. And I judged them for being so showy at first. Of course, now, right? Now I've done all my shadow work so I can see how amazing they are. But I'll tell you what, I did not feel that way about them in the beginning. I thought that they were so arrogant and showing off. And the truth is, I was judging them. And even truer than that about myself was I was jealous. I was jealous. I remember scrolling on my phone and I was sitting on the couch and I would just get that. I'd see one of their posts and I'd get that ugly, heavy feeling in my stomach. You know, the one when you're jealous of somebody else. The reason I share this story is because the act of being jealous or judging someone else had an impact on me personally. I felt it in my stomach, right? And I felt that kind of like knots in my stomach. And really, what that judgment and what that was a trigger of was my own shadow, the parts that I wanted to hide. So let's pause here. What is a shadow, and when can you tell if you have one that's being triggered? A shadow is just the hidden thoughts, feelings, emotions that are hidden from your main consciousness. They kind of run in the background or your subconscious, and often we make decisions from them without even knowing. That's what makes it so difficult to know if you have a shadow and what it looks like because it's running in the background. So, shadow work is the ability to take that hidden part and grow in your capacity to create a safe space for the shadow to choose to share what's actually going on with you so it doesn't feel like it has to hide it from you. And I found to be the most important part of the shadow work is you learn by being open and curious with it. What is it protecting by hiding this from you? So, how can you tell you even have a shadow? Well, I like to think there's three main ways that a shadow can be. You could be aware that you have one. Number one is a judgment, much like the story I shared. I had a judgment about someone else, and that's usually a reflection of something I'm hiding, and I judge someone else so that I don't have to do the thing that scares me. So it's a way to protect. Shadow is often hiding something and it thinks it's good for you. Putting those in air quotes, it really does. The second way that you can tell you have a shadow is if you get triggered by something. Someone says something and you get defensive, or you get that emotion that comes up that makes you kind of want to, fight or flight kind of thing. You get triggered. There's probably a shadow there, something that's hiding some thought and feeling because it doesn't want to go there. It is scared. The third one is if you feel numbed. And I find that feelings of depression can involve some shadows. That's a whole nother conversation. But there are times in which you can feel kind of void of emotions. And it might be because you have a shadow that's just trying to protect you by numbing yourself so you don't feel it. These are the three main ways that you can kind of tell you have a shadow. To truly do shadow work is once you realize there's a shadow, the idea is that you are going to expand your capacity and allow that shadow to tell you what's really going on. You don't have to like the feelings you're feeling. You can, in fact, it's really healthy to dislike what's going on, the feeling, the trigger, all of that, and also allowing space and compassion for the fact that part of you has that fear. And so, in a way, you're kind of expanding your capacity to hold more than one seemingly opposite idea. So let's analyze this story that I shared about judgment. So I was judging this other musician for being so arrogant and being able to easily post about themselves. And I was jealous. I really was. And I really wanted to be happy for them, but I couldn't. I couldn't. I was just I was just jealous because they were like able to seemingly post so freely about how awesome they were. And they're really great. Anyway, what I did was I sat with this emotion. The next time I got triggered, the next time I was judging them, I was like, wait, why? They're not doing anything wrong. They're not trying to hurt me. They're doing great. Like, I think I'm jealous of them. I really had to sit with the discomfort. And it's hard for me to tell you all the details because I'm now so far past it, but I remember feeling like it had to keep coming up for me. So that shadow had to keep showing up for me to finally decide to work on it. Can you think of something in your life that keeps triggering you? What's funny about this is it doesn't go away until you work on it. So eventually this kept coming up, and I realized that I just really wished that I had the ability to freely promote myself like they did. That was really hard for me to acknowledge that that's what was really underneath everything. The shadow was hiding the truth. I was judging this other musician because in reality, if I judged them, then I didn't have to promote myself the way that I knew would actually be beneficial for me. And if I kept going, by sitting with it, what would happen is it told me more. When I say it, like the shadow, the part of me that was scared, okay? The part of me that was scared was like, we don't know what'll happen if we start posting more about ourselves. So I keep asking it questions. I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it was just rattling off things like, people might not like you. And I don't remember all the details. This was years ago. But I remember the feelings of it being so afraid to be seen. And so this shadow was really just protecting me from that fear that I had within myself that I wasn't consciously aware of. It's not like I went to Facebook to get ready to post something and said to myself, I'm afraid of being seen, so I won't post this. No, the way the shadow works, and this is kind of the protector of the shadow, which is that's for another podcast episode. But the way this works is I'll get ready to post something on Facebook years ago when I was afraid to be seen. And I would say to myself, oh, well, that's not that great of a photo. Or, I don't really want to brag this much about this. Or I would, whatever the excuse is, I would make up some excuse, but I would never say the actual problem. And that's really why shadow work is so difficult because it is hidden. And not only did I have to have compassion for part of me that was afraid to be seen, I had to kind of sit with myself and say, I get that you don't want to be seen. I get that that's scary because it opens yourself up to judgment. And at this very same time, I had to hold the other truth, which was, I want people to hear my music. So in a way, the shadow work I did through that story was to grow in capacity to be able to not only hold the part of me that was scared to be seen, but also hold the truth, which is I want to be seen. Allowing both to exist within me is the hard part of shadow work. And that's the foundation. That's the calibrated state that allows you then to do the second phase of my framework, which is to experiment. Okay. And then you can optimize everything. This experimentation that I started to do was to push myself on social media to post and to not use some of those excuses that I used to use. And every time I would see that other person's post, I would sit with that judgment, and then I would allow it to tell me the truth until eventually I heard the truth more often than the judgment. And the judgment dissolved. And now I can confidently say, I think they are such a rock star, and I'm so proud of them. And one day I'll tell them, or maybe I already did. I don't remember. We might have already had this conversation. Probably, knowing me now. Because here's the truth, we all have shadows. We all have crap that we hide. And we often think that people won't be accepting of us being human. And then when you share it, they kind of giggle and they go, oh my gosh, I've thought this. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind because the worst thing you can do with shadow work is to think that you're the only one dealing with it. Although it's unique to you, we all have this cruddy, annoyingly heavy shadows. I don't know of anyone who doesn't. If you know of someone who doesn't have a shadow, please email me at kelsey@kelseymiles.com because I want to know their secret. All right. I'm looking at my notes right now, and it's time for us to get calibrated. Are you sitting down? I'd like for you to find a nice, comfortable seat. I'm on my yoga bolster right now. I'm going to take you through an exercise that'll take between 8 to 10 minutes. Before we get into it, let's think about one of your shadows. What's a time in which you've judged someone else? And this is usually a judgment that comes up more than once. A time in which you've been triggered, that could be the second one, usually triggered more than once. Or the third one could be something that really has happened that's numbed you and made you kind of shut down. Okay, so you can pause the episode and I want you to think about one of those situations because there is a shadow there and we're going to talk to it. So go ahead and pause and find your shadow. All right, and I need to set some ground rules. You need to stop this episode and do not listen to the rest of it if you are driving, if you are in between meetings at work and things are very important. Don't do this right now. If you are going to be taking a test here pretty soon, also don't do this if you are sleep deprived or haven't eaten today. So this is only something you do when you're feeling pretty good. If at any point in time during this guided experience, it felt very overwhelming and went past, I'd say, a discomfort level between 0 and 10, if it goes to 7 or higher, I'd like for you to stop. Shadow work doesn't need to be painful. It can feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't need to get that uncomfortable. I encourage you to find a licensed therapist to go through this as well. And if at any moment you have any thoughts of self-harm, absolutely, please call 988. Okay, promise me, please, that you'll stop this episode if this is you. Okay, if you are feeling all right, you've eaten, you're not sleep deprived, you're doing all right, you're hydrated, let's do this. So you're sitting comfortably, and I'd like for you to go ahead and put your phone on Do Not Disturb. First, we're going to just relax into this a bit. So you're going to slowly feel the bottom of your seat getting comfortable. You might sway left to right. And I want you to start to slow your breath down a little bit because we are going to put on our science goggles. We're going to hold up a clipboard in our head. We're going to put our lab coat on. We're going to start to collect some data. All right, take a big deep breath in and out. Through your nose or mouth, either is fine. You might shake your shoulders. Another deep breath in. And with this exhale, slowing down all your movement. Your eyelids might be heavy. Big deep breath in. And out. We're going to create some safety here with our breath. Breathe normally as I explain this. On our next big deep breath in that I'll invite you to do, you're going to hold at the very top. And then I'll ask you to take a second big deep breath in. The second one will be very short. And the idea is that you'll take one very big one and one very short one. And then I'll ask you to release it. So this is called a double sigh or a double breath. So big deep breath in together. And one more. And out. Really expand your diaphragm, your stomach as you do this big deep breath in. And one more. And out. Nice and slow, nice and slow. One more just like that. Big deep breath in. And one more. And out. One more time like that, and we're going to hold at the very top. Big deep breath in. One more. Hold. And release. Very good. Returning our breath to normal breathing. We're going to keep our eyelids closed. And I want you to imagine that trigger or that judgment or that time in which you felt numb. And I want you to notice where it lands in your body. For me, it's often a knot in my stomach, or it could feel like pressure on your shoulders. And we're slowly going to zoom out from this feeling. Now, what we're going to do, which might be helpful, is to think about putting on some lab goggles or a lab coat. Grab a clipboard, and you're just going to zoom out away from that bodily sensation. Now I want you to imagine a younger version of yourself. It doesn't matter the age. Just picture them feeling that sensation, feeling the knot in the stomach or the pressure on the chest or the tension in the shoulders. And tell that younger version of you, I'd love to know what's going on. I'm here to listen. Would you be willing to share with me what's going on? I'd love to listen. Breathe nice and slowly. Don't force anything. Just invite it. You might notice it start to say something. Maybe it's scared. They're scared for some reason. Maybe you can ask them another question. Maybe they're worried about something. Don't tell them not to be worried about it. You're just here to write down the information. Remember, you're a scientist. You're a helpful scientist. Let them say whatever they need to. We're not fixing it right now. What's coming up? What fears? Afraid to be seen? Afraid to fail? Afraid someone will say they're not good enough? Afraid that someone will find out they aren't good enough? Remember, we don't have to agree with what they're saying, but we just need to listen, because those fears are real and very true to a part of yourself. Now I want you to thank it. Now I want you to thank them. Thank that part of yourself that spoke up. Thank you for sharing Wow, you were so brave for saying that. Wow, I didn't know that you felt that way. Thank you for sharing that with me. That took a lot of courage. And I'm so curious to learn more. And I appreciate you shared what you did. I'm going to sit with this information. And I want you to know that I'll be back. Now we're going to tell them, you are so brave to share that with me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to sit down and think about this. And I want you to know that I'm right here and that I understand that you're afraid, and I've got us. I've got us. You don't need to carry that fear around alone. Now I know too. You're not alone in this. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. I've got us. And the next time you feel this way, let me know. I'm here to help and I'm here to listen. Thank you so much. Invite that part of yourself now to go off and play, thanking it, sending it off with some love. Wave goodbye to it. I want you to finish writing down your notes and on your clipboard in your head. Maybe now you remove your goggles, you take your lab coat off. You did a great job writing down that information, collecting the data without judgment. And now I'd like for you to take a big deep breath in and out. Start to wiggle your fingers. Big deep breath in and out. Noticing your seat maybe sway left and right. Wiggle your toes. Move your shoulders a little bit. Start to open your eyes. All right, to wrap this up, this is very important. I need you to grab a piece of paper or a journal and a pen or a pencil. The I Am Lyrical Journey is perfect for this. There's extra pages of notebook paper at the very end you can use. These questions, these journal prompts, these will be short answers you'll write, and they're also in the show notes, the descriptions of this podcast episode. Number 1, what was the situation that you analyzed? Was it the time you judged someone, a time you got triggered, or a time that you felt numb? Where was the shadow coming from? So write that specific one down. Number 2, where did you feel it in your body? Was it in your stomach, your shoulders, your pressure on your chest? And what was that intensity like from a 0 to a 10, that beginning feeling? We're going to analyze the difference between how it felt after. Number 3, what did it start to say? Did it say anything? Number 4, did you imagine a younger version of yourself? Do you know how old you were? What was that younger version of you saying? Number 3 and 4 might have very similar discussion points here. What were you afraid of? What was it saying? If it said nothing, that's still data too. I want you to write it down. Okay, and after you thanked it, after you said, thank you for sharing, after you told it, hey, I'm here to listen, I appreciate that you shared that with me, you're not doing this alone, what was the new intensity? The stomach cramping feel you had in the chest, wherever you felt it. What was the intensity of that feeling from 0 to 10? How are you feeling right now? Go ahead and mark that down. This is evidence and data for you to lean on. Again, these questions are in the show notes, so take a couple minutes here. Go ahead and pause this episode and write these out. This exercise makes me want to share a lyric in shadow, and I've never shared this quite like this with anyone. In shadow, in the chorus, I say, "Let me be your shadow. I'll follow you into the dark. Let me be your shadow. I'll never be too far." These lyrics that I'm going to play, these lyrics are exactly what we did in this calibrated moment, this guided meditation I invited you to do, where it's I wrote them to tell myself that I'm not doing this alone, and that the part of me that is scared and in the shadow doesn't need to be there alone.
Let me be your shadow. You are never alone. Let me be your shadow.
This kind of shadow work can bring up some really hard thoughts. So be very thoughtful when you do this. And now, when you're done with this episode, I would love if you could do something for yourself that feels like loving yourself, because that was some hard work we did. Think about something that is showing up for yourself, whether it's going for a walk, calling a friend, drinking your favorite tea, or having a nice hot meal, or watching a funny comedy, reading part of your book, snuggling with your dog. I'd say cat, but cats don't like to snuggle all the time. I want you to make sure that that's something you're going to do right after this episode, because you'll need it. You did some really hard work today. Before we end this podcast episode, I want to share a little bit about, when do you do shadow work? When do you know you need to do shadow work? And also, some of the mistakes I've seen people make that I think is not a very healthy way to practice shadow work. Let me first start with the extreme of some of this toxic positivity that's out there. You can't just joy your way out of negative thoughts or things that scare you. There's a part of you that's scared, and by just saying, like, I am fearless and full of love, there's that part of you that's going to feel very, 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 very unseen. And that's actually a song of mine called I See You. It's really the worst thing you could do to someone is not see them. It's also the best thing you could do, which is to fully see them. So don't get caught up in this whole positive affirmation thing, thinking it's going to solve everything. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying I've seen people do that. Here's another one. Let's go to the opposite end of what not to do. I have seen some spiritual coaches guide people and themselves into thinking they need to uncover every single shadow that they have. Now, I know some of you might say, but what's wrong with that, Kelsey? It's good for us to uncover these shadows. And I agree, mostly. Here's where it can get tricky. I have seen people go too far to where they have essentially decided to live their life thinking something's wrong with them until they uncover all of their shadows and heal all of their shadows. That's not a fun life to live. Could you imagine living your life thinking something's wrong with me and I am not okay unless I'm perfect? Like, that's the life that most of us, if you're still listening, that's the life all of us are trying not to live anymore. So we're not going to jump from we're not going to jump from that life of like trying to be perfect and people pleasers and all that stuff to a spiritual world of trying to be perfect. I've seen people jump from that. That's not the point. The point that we're trying to go is, how can I increase my capacity? Now, I will say that there's nothing wrong with uncovering and doing shadow work, and a lot of it, if you have the time and the capacity and you've got, months off of work or something, and that's not most of us. Most of us can't do that. So you have to be really specific about when you do the shadow work. That's why I'm suggesting a shorter amount of time and making sure that you're doing something kind for yourself afterwards, because you never know what you're going to uncover. Don't approach shadow work as something that you need to fix about yourself. The most important way to do this is to go deep within that specific topic. So, whatever it is that keeps coming up from you, focus on that shadow and go as deep as possible, revisiting it. I want you to rewind what we just did in that calibration moment and go over it. Go over it maybe once a week when you feel good, and notice how the answers to your journal prompts will start to adjust. You'll notice it starts saying new fears, new things it's scared of. And you'll keep going depth, not breadth. We are not looking at all the shadows we have. I want you to pick just one and go as far as you can. So keep revisiting this. The reason I'm inviting you to do this is because as a scientist, I've learned that when you get really, really good at one type of experiment, you can apply what you learned to every experiment. I became an organic chemist. However, I was doing analytical chemistry and some biology last year in my classes because I'm a really good organic chemist. Being very good at one thing can kind of allow you to understand the process of mastery. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to gain tools that you'll have forever. So go deep, focusing on that one particular shadow, because most often the one that you get triggered by the most is the one that needs the most work. So don't jump around thinking you need to solve them all. Okay? It's fine. It's fine. There's lots of shadows. We all have lots of shadows. And there's nothing wrong with you. If you haven't heard that recently, here's your reminder. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you. This kind of work is very sacred and it's very vulnerable, and it opens you up in a way you may have never been opened up. It's very hard to sit with that discomfort and act like a true scientist, which is open to it saying anything. A true scientist is open to any data it receives. It doesn't expect a specific conclusion. And I think that's the most difficult and uncomfortable feeling, to sit with a part of your unconscious self, a younger version or a part of you that's scared, and to go, I'm here, I'm listening, say whatever comes up, and to really, really make it believe you that you are open to it and you're not going to judge it for saying it. That's the bridge. That's the way you build capacity. Then you can meet it with compassion. And now you're sitting at a place where you are calibrated. Calibration does not mean perfection. Calibration is, where am I right now? Where am I right now? Being radically honest with yourself. This was a big episode. I really appreciate that you took the time to sit with me and to do this. And I hope that you'll save it. And I hope that this helped you in some way. I'd like to ask for some help. Think of something that used to feel like something you were scared of and you kind of hid it. And then you did the work and now you feel powerful from it. And I'd love for you to share it with me. Email me at kelsey@kelseymiles.com. I'm already thinking of a few of you that I know that listen to this podcast that I'm going to reach out because you have some good stories. I think that's everything. Also, if you enjoyed this, please share this. I'd love your help in getting this to people you think might get some benefit out of this, because not all of the episodes are for everyone, but maybe this one really is for someone that you know, someone that's struggling to sit with uncomfortable thoughts. Maybe this calibration moment I shared is helpful for them. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back next week with a new life story as we wrap up our section on shadow. We're still in the calibration phase, learning to be radically honest with ourselves so that we can live boldly and lead a life of curiosity so we can keep being our most amazing, authentic selves.
You are never alone. Let me be your shadow.